Hi, welcome everyone. This is the County Office of Ed, San Diego County Office of Ed, K12 Consortium Application and Orientation. Thank you for joining, and if you can go to the next slide. Here are the objectives for our session today. So we're going to give you a brief overview of career pathways and how the K12 funding can support developing or enhancing career education programs in middle school. And then we'll also explain the K12 Strong Workforce Consortium application process and timeline that we are offering to middle schools who either are thinking about applying for K12 Strong Workforce funding or just aren't quite ready, and we can help support that effort for you. Next screen. Next slide. So let me start with the K12 Strong Workforce program. Who's eligible? School districts, County Office of Ed, charter schools, ROPs. We're not an ROP in San Diego County. And then LEAs can partner with other LEAs as a consortium, which is what we're offering for folks who might be interested in that option. With one LEA as the lead, agency agent or fiscal agent, and then other LEAs and K12 partner agencies. And an LEA can submit more than one application. They can submit up to 3 and or partner with no more than 3 other applications. And then the grant is focused on grades 7 through 12. It says, although it says K12, it really is a focus on grades 7 through 12. Next slide. So here is our timeline for the RFA. So it was released just not too long ago, August 25th. And colleagues have been really just working hard on providing as much support through a series of workshops, and I'll show you the link for that in just a little bit. But we don't have a whole lot of time if we're going to go down this path as a consortium application. So the due date is October 5th. And the link there for the RFA, and you'll find all the supporting documents and the RFA, which is a 50-some page document, if you want to delve into that. And then there is an opportunity, if there are questions, that we can submit questions to the Chancellor's office by the 20th. And then there was a bidders conference that was held on August 31st. And there's links for the recording and the slide deck if you want to check that out. Next slide. So funding levels. So for our region, which we share with Imperial County, let me just pause here for a moment. So we have Nicole, who's a K12 pathway coordinator on the call. And Erin, you're with Bonzel, is that correct? I think so, thumbs up. And
yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and has Bonzel had a K12 Strong Workforce grant?
I believe so. I'm just kind of new to this coordinator position, so I'm learning it all.
Okay, excellent. All right. And how about CTIG funding? Do you have CTIG funding?
Yes.
Okay, so that gives me a little bit better orientation around some of the documents that we'll be showing. Okay, so for our region that we share with Imperial, we have 13 million available. And again, this is out of the RFA. And Imperial gets, I think, about 25% or up to a certain amount, and that's determined by the selection committee. But there's a portion that goes off the top to our Imperial County neighbors and our part of the consortium. And so you'll see there also that the funding levels, if you have an application with up to 140 ADA, you can get up to 250,000 and so forth. The last consortium application that we had was just slightly under 10,000, and we were able to apply for up to $1 million, and we were awarded 900, and no, we were awarded 800,000. So again, it's the discretion of the selection committee based on how many applications and how many of those applications that merit getting awarded funds. So that just gives you an idea of if we get a consortium of over 10,000, we can apply up to $2 million. And the ADA is calculated by the lead and all of the agents, all of the LEA partners. So it's a comprehensive amount, an aggregate amount of the ADA. Next slide. So if we, again, venture down this path together, so given, we're going to do a little bit of backward calendaring. So the application is due in Nova on October 5th by 5 p.m. And we won't wait till that time to submit, but we will be submitting the application. So again, working backwards between now and September 11th, if you are interested in participating in a consortium application between now and September 11th, please let us know. So that gives you almost a week, about a week. And then we will meet with you to assist you as needed to complete the following documents no later than September 18th. So there is a self-evaluation, a problem statement, project objectives document that is part of NOVA, but I'll create a document for you to complete that, and then a work plan and budget and match. So we will work with you between when you decide that you're interested in this consortium and the 18th. We will work with you to complete those documents, and we'll be working on our own as well. And then between the 19th and the 26th, we will finalize, which means I will take all the information that I've received from any interested consortium partners, and I will roll that up into one application. And that one application will include a roll-up of everyone's problem statement, project objectives. You'll each complete a work plan. I'll take key highlights from each work plan, but you will each have your individual budget and match. And there is also one other document. It's an assurance statement, and that's just a signature by your signature authority person. So those are the documents that we will help you with between the 11th and the 18th, and then rolling all up into one. And then we have an internal application process that takes about a week. They ask us for a week, and then it gives us a little bit of a little bit of a buffer if there's anything we need to add or edit. And then we are going to submit, my goal is to submit the day before, by the 4th of October. And Erin, please ask questions, since you're the only one on the call who might be considering applying. So go ahead and unmute yourself and ask questions along the way.
Okay, I will.
All right, thanks. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so going back to the goal of the Strong Workforce Program. So it's seeking applications from LEAs to create, support, or expand high-quality CT course sequences, programs, pathways at the K12 level. And again, our focus right now for this application is middle school, and that are aligned to the regional workforce efforts through the Strong Workforce Program. So that's kind of the big umbrella of what we're trying to achieve. Next slide, please. So, and the funds are to support LEAs to develop high quality, equity driven. You'll hear that frequently, and you probably heard it throughout other sessions that you might have attended. So really addressing equity gaps, and looking at course sequence, creating course sequence, K14, course sequence programs and pathways that, again, build foundational career pathways, path skills and knowledge, enable transition from high school to community college. And again, focusing on middle schools, we want our middle schools to start looking at, if they haven't already, what are the offerings at the high school, and how do we prepare our middle schools as they transition to their feeder high school. Completion of industry certificates, degrees, transfers, and again, preparing students for livable wage occupations. So this is really rooted in building social mobility and economic opportunity for some of our underrepresented students in the high skill, high wage demand occupations in our region. And again, that's closing the equity gaps for those students. And then facilitating career exploration, again, throughout their K through 14. And then there's a big goal that the state has for 1 million CT completers, getting students through, not just completing 1 or 2 pathways, but completing pathways as they go through their high school pathway programming. Next slide. Okay, I am going to turn it over to Al to talk about the 15 priority industry sectors.
Well, and so when we talk about industry sectors, we talk about the 15 in the state. When we talk about high priority sectors, that usually is something that's determined locally. And so San Diego has high priority sectors that we really want to create a labor force. And that labor force should be created from the entry level all the way through professional degreed individuals. So when you look here on this particular poster, which would be in every high school and middle school, and now down to the elementary level, this is for California, the industry sectors that are recognized. And when you look at the sectors, there's 15. And when you look underneath the title in every one of these bubbles, you see pathways. And so if we were to just grab one of them, if you look under the business and finance, you see that there's 3 pathways. And the pathway is what lives on the high school campus. The pathway, the program of study, the 3 or 4 course sequence, and many times you can have a 2 course sequence that would allow you to reach that completer status. So when we talk about understanding with our middle schools, what the big picture is from the elementary to the middle school being that exposure piece, that first introduction to what will most likely be a program of study or a course sequence that they will get involved in when they get to their high school. And that course sequence at the high school will continue into the community colleges as part of our K-16 program, and K-14 and K-16. So this is all about alignment and understanding how, wherever I am in this particular thread, how can I create the most robust, how can I create a program that is enhancing what students will be able to experience and prepare them for that next step in the career technical education journey. So having this poster is key. When I used to walk around to different schools and I would be part of different audits, many auditors look to see, do you even have the career technical education? The best poster that's out there for California's career industry sectors is this one. So make sure that you have this, and it kind of allows you to speak in one unified voice about all of the sectors that are out there, and then specifically about the sectors that you're offering in your district or at your school site, and then specifically what pathways you're offering. This document allows you to kind of talk about it in one swath. Any questions about this so far? Then we'll get right down here to the middle school level specifically. All right, next slide.
Sorry, I just lost my share. Where did it go?
Or not.
We'll reshare here really quick.
Well, any questions on anything so far that you've heard from Margie or myself? All right, we're doing well then. Maybe it's my turn to share.
I know, maybe today is just, here, let's do this one.
Okay.
I don't know, it tabbed out of that one. And so let me share a new one. And this is not this webinar. I have too many middle school webinars. Consortium. Apologize for that.
There you go. All right. Well, and on this particular slide, because we are focusing on middle schools, we're not as concerned about some of the technical aspects, CalPAS codes and things of that nature. But as you look at the details of developing a program or continuing a program, just remember that CTE teachers are also credentialed, and they need to be credentialed appropriately. So just if there's any questions about how to get credentialing addressed, feel free to reach out to any of the 3 of us here on the webinar. Next slide. When we talk about middle school CTE programs, you usually have 2 versions. You have either a CTE teacher that is in a particular sector. For instance, you have a middle school woodshop teacher, or in our world, we would say a building and construction trades teacher. Or you have maybe a math teacher that teaches a section or two of coding, or in our world, we'd say they're an ICT instructor. I said that's one example of how it lives on your campus. Looks similar like other classes where there's a full year course, students teachers teaching maybe video production, coding, or what have you, and it's semester 1, semester 2, and it looks similar to any other course on your campus. I said, and then the other version is the middle school wheel that looks a little bit different than every course on your campus, where every couple of weeks, the instructor is introducing students to a different sector and a different, you might say pathway, but it's not really a pathway, but some folks like to talk about it and use those terminologies. I would simply say they take you through a modular experience where they touch on different industry sectors and cover, have different activities that basically are awareness and exploratory in nature. And so the wheel course, we're seeing more of those as of late than the actual CTE instructor on campus. I said, but whichever direction you want to go, this funding is going to allow you to develop or enhance whichever condition exists on your campus. So let us know if that's the kind of application you want to write, which is to either enhance your wheel course, or whether you're looking to develop a standalone full year program. So those are two great application models, and they're easy for you to really describe what you want to do on your campus to enhance CTE. And I believe that when we look at our selection committee, these are the types of programs that at the middle school get a favorable view. And I taught middle school for a number of years, and I taught drafting and woodshop way back in the days. And this was a 4-year course. So I was in that sector or pathway model. And then later on, I started to do exploratory wheel trainings for instructors who had a background in CTE, but because of their interest in offering exploratory wheels on their campus, we were able to expand it to more school sites and have more instructors engaged. So the wheel has become even, and this is back in the late 80s. So the wheel has still become more and more popular as you have a tougher time finding qualified CTE teachers to teach full year classes, and it's a harder time to offer full-time positions for CTE instructors at the middle school. So the wheel is the one that's gaining more steam, and we see more applications up and down the state being written to enhance the middle school exploratory wheel / maker spaces, that model. Next.
But there was a question in from Aaron, so excuse me, from Nicole, and I just wanted to confirm. So a CT credential is not required when you're teaching the exploratory, when it's 3 or 4 and it's exploration. If you're focusing on just one, like health science, and that's what you're as an intro, then yes, a CT credential may be required. And Al, I just want, or Al, if you can confirm that, just because I don't want to misinform.
Yeah, you don't want, and so always, the CTE credential is always required when you're teaching CTE. But the good news is that teachers that are at the middle school level, the way you get around this is you can have a CTE credential in education. But you should have a CTE credential even if you're teaching a wheel. And sometimes you hear folks say that, no, it's not required, but if you get audited, and the odds of being audited are very minimal, but when you're bigger districts, when you get audited, you find that folks are still, this is the one that's confusing for a lot of folks. Folks still say, oh, I don't need a CTE credential if I'm teaching the wheel. But you really, if you're teaching CTE, you should always have a CTE credential. But keep in mind, you can get a CTE credential as a single subject or a multi-subject teacher. You can get a CTE credential in education, and it's only one module that you have to complete. So it's worth the getting all the details and making sure that you cover all of your bases, because there are a lot of schools out there that don't have CTE teachers teaching their wheels.
I will say, because, so Al's absolutely right for Perkins, 100%. CTE incentive grant is becoming a little bit more lenient in that space. And that is the reason that CalPADS code was created. I think it's like 9532. I don't have that right in front of me right now. That allows for a non-CTE teacher to teach that career exploration course. K12SWP says that the teacher must be highly qualified in the area they are teaching. It does not explicitly say that it has to be a CTE credential, although that is the high water marker for this work. So there are no audits on K12SWP at this point, besides fiscal audits. Yeah.
That is the plus with SWP. So for this particular grant, because they say that there's no audits, you're a little bit more comfortable in having a highly qualified instructor that loves to work in the CTE space. It's a little more comfortable, but you wouldn't have and I always say you wouldn't have, someone that doesn't have a credential to teach math, even though they may love computer science. And so I always recommend that you try to have that high quality, high watermark be achieved by having the same expectation you would have for any of your core classes. But for the funding for this particular one, since there is no audit, don't go through the extraordinary lengths to make someone get credentialed. CTIG is gonna get into that space. Perkins, you're already in that space, but typically most of our middle schools aren't working around with. They're not working with Perkins.
When it comes to credentialing, we cannot technically reimburse someone for a credential because that would be considered a gift of public funds. But one thing, if you do want to emphasize credentialing as part of your program plan, is that you can incentivize teachers having additional professional learning around the credential program, and they may earn a professional learning stipend once they have completed that credential, which may help them with the fees that they had to spend out of their own pocket. So there are ways to help incentivize folks getting that credential, but we do need to be careful about the language we use, because we cannot buy a credential for someone, as that's a gift of public funds. But there are ways to support their getting of that credential.
And I'll add on there that I always encouraged and recruited instructors when I was a CTE director for a district, and I always reimbursed them and created the language that my finance folks would feel comfortable with. So always checking with your chief business officer on language, but always, in my view, looking to reimburse folks who have no other reason to get a credential except for you want them to. So always try and work from the teacher perspective as to why would I do this? One, because I want to teach the course. Secondly, because I want to make offering CTE and enhancing and expanding that on my campus. And third is that it's not going to cost me to do this, that it shouldn't cost you to be a benefit to your campus and expand on their program of study, especially in the CTE space. So definitely don't allow that not to be an obstacle. That's just a small hill that you have to get over.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you, Margie. I think that was
Awesome.
it for me.
Great. Next slide. Okay, so for new program development, so what sector should you focus on? I think we talked a lot about the exploratory wheel, and also the, as earlier stated, that we're looking for, the funding is looking for programs that align to our priority sectors. And there's lots of labor market information to access for that. And we'll have some, I think the next slide will show that. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide. So, and as I said at the top of this, and maybe even before folks jumped on, you may have seen some of these in other sessions. So these are slides that I've pulled from, this is from the deep dive that Leslie just did on Thursday or Friday, a deep dive on the K12 Strong Workforce application process. So looking for project objectives that are aligned to the regional priorities. And we have created, so if you can click on that link there, the middle school career development continuum. Thank you. We've created these continuums that you can look at for and identify, what am I doing right now around career development or career exploration, career awareness, self-awareness. Am I already doing some curriculum to that students are identifying strengths? Are they doing using online resources? And there are several really good ones out there like Zello or Thrively, I believe Naviance. So there are some off-the-shelf tools. So you can go through these and see, what am I doing already? There's in school, there's for out of school, post-secondary. There you go, thanks. That provide you with some ideas around, this is the one Jewel put together. That's really much easier. She collapsed all 4 of these pages into one. Thank you, Jewel. So it's easier for you to see, what am I doing around each of these buckets of middle school awareness around the curriculum, career research planning. So you can use this and go through and highlight in maybe one color. And Jewel did this in her middle school CT in middle school. And then we also did this in a session for folks to learn more. We did this at the beginning of the summer. And I think it's just a really good way to assess what your current offerings are. And this will be also a really useful tool to create your project plan. And we'll see that when we get to the CTIC. So we can go ahead and go back to the slides.
A quick note, when you're creating your project plan, there are 4 different strategies you're choosing from, and they actually align to these 4 categories here. So if you do that highlighting, then it helps you determine which of those strategies you want to be part of.
Yeah, you can see on the first column there, the work-based learning, post-secondary engagement, curriculum, post-secondary. So nice job on that. And then, oh, sorry, one more, go back. Other way. Thank you. There is a very useful tool as well. If you're not certain about your high school program and what high school programs feed into the community college, there's some links there for the an online resource called Program Finder. You can play around with that on your own, but you click on a particular industry sector, and then it can take you to what high school you can put in, or you can do it by high school, my high school, and what's the nearest community college, excuse me, that offers engineering, architecture, design, health, or so forth, so that you can look at, again, some of that alignment, because that's really what these projects are about, aligning, having that through line. And we're all emphasizing starting at the middle school through career exploration or other activities that are exposing students to our region's priority industry sectors, high growth, high skill, high wage, and on to post-secondary. Next slide. Oh, before you go. And the last note there, CT at the middle school level. This was a great presentation that Jewel did week before last. The slide deck and recording, and it's just a lot of the same information you'll find, but it's just chock full of great tips, resources for you to consider as you're developing your middle school programs. Okay, now next slide. This was that exercise that we mentioned, and looking at that other document that Jewel brought up that mushed the continuum into one long sheet. Again, just to highlight what you're already doing and what you're not doing to help you identify projects, and then also help feed the next slide. Feed some of these documents that you will be completing. So these are all hyperlinked, and these are from the RFA. And starting with, okay, that's fine. I highlighted, these are the documents that anyone participating in our consortium will need to complete. And again, we will provide some assist in that. So, and then there's some examples. So the first one being the budget match template, and there's an example for that. The problem statement and project objectives. There, this link is to an example and I'll give you a document that will feed into the NOVA, because that one isn't this particular problem statement and project objectives is not a separate document. The work plan, that is a separate document, a template, and then they give you, oh, sorry, that's on the next slide. The template, and then the assurance and the, I can't remember the last one, thank you. The high quality evaluation and plan, which is the next one. Thank you. Next one, yeah. So the CTIG, so if you click on the link, and you're very familiar with this, Aaron, if you have CTIG, so I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I think the key is that as you're assessing and there's no score on this for strong workforce. I know it was scored for CTIG, no score is required for strong workforce. But the selection committee will look at it. You know, they'll see, okay, let's see how they have self-assessed themselves, either for CTIG or for this opportunity. What's their evidence on file? What are some of the challenges, or what are some strengths, and where are opportunities? And that last box, the opportunities, that is where you can pull some from the assessing on the continuum, that these will be the opportunities that I'll focus on with this funding to help further support and or develop or enhance. And again, if you've done CTIG, you're golden. We'll just attach that to into NOVA. So every partner has to complete that. And then I've added some examples from Calistoga, La Mesa, and then also the CTIG self-evaluation session that was held on the 23rd. That Jewel, and with assist from Coronado Slides, it's a very, very resourceful, very it's a great presentation as well. So if you take a look at that. And again, this is again restating that last box, the minimum eligibility standards for each of these sections. I think there's 11, but then there's some have 7A, 7B. So there are a lot of boxes. But that last box, the improvement opportunities and plans, that is where you should include your information, industry sector pathways, improvements, and processes that will need to be put in place that you'll be using these resources to fund. And again, the plan should explicitly state proposed services and or needs. Why you need the funding for this. Okay, next slide. Problem statement. Jewel, you just did a session on problem statement and project objectives, correct? That was just like 9 o'clock this morning.
Yes. Well, Leslie went into it in depth on Friday in the K12SWP application webinar. And then I talked about how these tie into your project plan and how you might make a bigger picture plan and then pull from that the problems and objectives that you would like to include in this grant.
Great. Awesome. So again, it has to be informed by and aligned to the regional plan, strong workforce regional plan. And there was a note that it's not the Southern Border Plan, but the regional plan. And then there's an organization called the Centers of Excellence, and they do some really wonderful labor market information and reports. And we have some links for that as well. And again, the deep dive that Leslie did on Friday, that goes really in depth on a lot of this information. But what I wanted to just convey to any partners considering it, yes, we do need a problem statement, and it's identifying the industry sector, the need and opportunity in creating alignment with high school to community college partner, and then also using data to identify equity gaps. And this is where you might want to look at your CCI information, your dashboard. And again, there's another great session that was done by Jewel on CCI equity, using CCI for equity. And it's in the, and there's a link for all of these sessions towards the end of this. Take a look at that, because it's there's lots of great info on how to look up data that will really identify where do I have students who might not be, who may be underrepresented in some of these CT courses. One thing that was very striking was foster care. Our homelessness coordinator reached out to us and said, I looked at CCI data and I saw that for my foster care youth, they had higher graduation rates for those who were CT completers. She said, I need to get this information out to all my homeless coordinators and so that they can be more aware of the impact of CTE for some of our underrepresented populations or vulnerable students, special populations, foster care or homelessness being one. So look at your data, see where you may have some gaps in representation and or gender. We had another middle school that's part of our round 5 consortium. They have a pretty well-defined engineering program using Project Lead the Way, but their goal was to increase females. So they're also looking at gender equity. So just a few areas to look at, and I would recommend the Equity CCI session that you take a look at that as well. And then I gave some example problem objectives that are from the RFA as well. So we can continue on. Next slide. So here are some of the sources. Special reports by the Centers of Excellence. They've got some great labor market briefs. And then there's last year's career education guide and priority sector handouts that were developed by our regional consortia. So there's tons of information to look at. And again, if you become part of the consortium, we will help distill down to maybe exploration that you're planning, or if you want to start developing a pathway. For example, one of our middle schools has a very well-developed engineering robotics pathway. That's in Alpine. And that's all she teaches is just engineering robotics. And she is a CTE credentialed teacher. So we've helped her look at, okay, what does the data tell us to further continue supporting so that we have the justification for funds for developing another section or going wall to wall with your middle school for offering career exploration in that industry sector. Okay, next slide. The project objectives now, and this is the you might want to check out Julie's session this morning too, because it goes into more detail on this. But this is where you respond to the problem, what was described in the problem statement. Again, informed by the regional plan and any other centers of excellence labor market information. Identify measurable outcomes that align with the career pathways or programs, either to community college or to the high school. And that's, again, some of the outcomes, measurable outcomes, how many students, how many teachers, the activities, how will that further along development of pathways or further along students transition from 8th grade perhaps into 9th grade. Your counselors, how will your counselors engage? And again, describing how to close equity gaps by improving access and completion. This might be, you might have a special tutorial session on career exploration for English language learners. You may want to do a parent, inviting parents of underrepresented students so they could learn and encourage their student around some of these options for career pathways. Next slide. The work plan, and this is again where Jill mentioned that this work plan, the 4 areas, and you only have to choose one. You could do more, but I would recommend if you're just starting out that you focus on just one. So it's curriculum and instruction, college career exploration, post-secondary transition and completion, and work-based learning. And I've added an example from the Napa County ROP. They did a very nice job for their middle schools. I will then ask you all to give me your work plan. And again, I will synthesize this into one work plan. So be brief, be concise, but make sure we're hitting off the key areas of how's it informed by labor market, how are we closing equity gaps, and are the project objectives measurable? Are they clear? Are the activities clearly defined? and justification for supporting these. So yeah, so it's a lot, but you only have to focus on one. If you decide to do a couple, again, we're here to support you in really honing in on which of these four. And Al, I'm not sure if you want to add anything onto the work plan discussion. Okay.
I would simply say that my voice in this whole enhancing CTE in the county has been to let the selection committee know that we're trying to onboard more schools, more districts, charters, what have you, to provide more high quality CTE to the students in our county. And so looking at what you want to do on your campus and knowing that it's going to address one of the strategies Margie has on the screen right now, and knowing that this is only going to be a better experience for your students, more preparatory for your students, and writing an application that you can really see yourself as executing the play is something that should gain favor with the selection committee. It's not like you're writing to the state and you're competing with the entire state and they're going to rubric you to death. The selection committee is going to be looking at it and trying to recognize that some of our newer applications are going to have a little bit more work that needs to be done. And so don't allow that to get in the way of you applying for this grant, because we want to make sure that we're helping newer programs come on board. And so when I think about Bonsall and others, we want to do more. I want to work with Bonsall. Last time around, we brought on, what, 4 or 5 new schools, right, Margie? In our last consortium application?
Yeah, three new ones.
Three new. So
Three new middle schools, yep.
We're trying to bring on more. Margie's done a great job of really walking side by side with them. I sent 3 emails while I'm sitting right now to 3 superintendents who I thought would have someone here. And I want to really onboard them. They're not in the system yet. And we know that we have to kind of go out and walk folks over and let them know it's okay to dip their toe in. So we're going to end up chasing a few more folks to bring them on board that currently do not have an SWP grant. And so I'm part of that recruiter, kind of like the scout that's going out to the different school sites looking for players, right, to recruit to this college basketball, softball, volleyball team. So I'm the scout going out in San Diego County, finding the schools that are not, the districts that are not currently enjoying this additional dollars to enhance their CTE programs. I'm going out to find them. I'm not working with the bigger districts in that capacity. We work on different things. And so I'm glad that you're here today, small group, and we're going to onboard more of the folks that have not applied in the past. That's our goal. Margie will take you through, and she's been doing this the last couple of years with great success to the finish line in regards to budget planning, looking at what are the foreseeable goals that you really have for your campus, and trying to make sure that they are articulated in a way that the readers on the selection committee will be able to see where you're headed with your aspirations on your campus. Jewel does a great job giving folks the opportunity to really understand this whole SWP ecosystem. Has a lot of pieces to it. And so it's nice to be able to continue to get more and more support. That's what the county office does. That's specifically what the College and Career Readiness vertical does within the Innovation Division, is onboard more schools, more charter schools, more districts into this SWP grant application game. And so definitely ask us any question, email us after the fact. we want to get you in, but there is a deadline. So there is a time boundness to this. So we want to make sure that you are able to successfully cross the finish line. Margie will take you there.
Thanks, Al. Next slide, which I think are our last one. Okay, so budget and match requirements. I lined out the 1-to-1 for ROPs because we don't have an ROP in our region, but lucky for them, they only have to do a 1-to-1 match. So for every dollar that we apply for, so if we have over 10,000 in our consortium and we apply for we can apply up to 2 million, we'd have to come up with 4 million in match. So that's first off, 2-to-1 match. It has to be cash. And that basically means, things like instructional support. So your teachers, counselors, their salaries can be used as match. And it has to be from pathways of programs in the project. So it can't be an unrelated teacher instruction or activity. And then it's just the basic object code, which is, the 1 through 1,000 through 7,000. And then on the RFA, you can see where there's allowable or non-allowable match. Same for allowable or non-allowable activities and costs on pages 41 through 45. And for districts that are receiving K-16 collaborative funds, which is a new funding stream, that can be used as match. And again, it has to be, though, in the pathways and programs that reflected in the Strong Workforce Project. And then there's also another example of budget and match guidelines that are provided by the Chancellor's Office. And then that last one is a budget match example that you can, I think you probably have seen it in other presentations. If you want to do a quick look at it, we can do so. If you want to, no, the last one, there you go. That'll give you an idea of how budgets are laid out. So this example shows that their total match, or excuse me, their total grant ask is like 430,000. They have a budget narrative, and so their match has to be twice that at 860,000. And then it you can see there their description of their match. They're using their general funds, Perkins, community college support from Strong Workforce, their Strong Workforce funding, which is allowable, and then some partner donations. So they're describing how their match, what their match contribution source is. Great. Okay, and this just gives you, again, that same example. I think this was from probably round 1 or 2 of Strong Workforce. District applying for 800,000, they have to come up with 1.6 mil. And then, so these boxes just describe that, the financial match, where the sources are. Next slide. And I thought this was a really great slide from the deep dive that Leslie did last week. So, tips for project success. That a good problem statement will describe your targeted population, what the labor market demands are, and then how you're going to address the problem in your project objectives, and how what you'll do with the funds to resolve or address the issues in increasing underrepresented students or closing equity gaps, and increasing completers or students who are entering to and completing pathways as they go on to high school and community college. And then how the budget supports all of that. The work plan describing it in more detail for either one of the following, those 4 categories, and then the budget support. And I believe, okay, and this I barely got on the screen. So there is accountability. And as the lead in a consortium, SDCOE is responsible for submitting these progress and fiscal reporting reports. And this is just a schedule, and I contact folks about 30 to 45 days out of these due dates to remind folks your expenditure reporting is going to be due on August 31st. So what are your expenditures from January 1 through June 30? And the same for then starting July 1 through December. So we will collect your expenditure reporting, and there is a document that the regional consortia has provided to us that we will share with you all. And then there is some CalPADS reporting, but again, if we're focusing only on middle schools, you won't be required to do, well, you don't do CalPADS reporting at middle, however, high schools do. And I think, Erin, you probably already have a CalPAS Plus account. If not, there's a link there, because all strong workforce LEAs have to feed this information into CalPAS Plus, and then there is the link there for you to join to sign up for CalPAS Plus if you don't already have that account. So that's just a calendar of when reporting is due, and that's an annual. And again, we will work with you on that as required. And I believe we are done with slides, with about 7 minutes left for any questions you might have. And this last slide for additional assistance. And I guess these were all those wonderful sessions that I mentioned throughout that you can find for the CCI using the College Career Indicator and data dashboard for addressing CCI, the deep dive, the project plan and objectives. So lots of really, really great information there. So not to overwhelm anyone, but there is, I think that was our commitment at starting this as a region, as an SDCOE, as a regional consortia. How do we help build capacity and support our LEAs to access this funding, to help continue developing pathways to, again, address improving programs and increasing student participation and completion, especially our underrepresented students in these high skill, high wage, to really support their social mobility, economic opportunity, just to create just a thriving economy for our region. I mean, these are workforce development, more workforce development programs around how do we just provide, as our tagline, a future without boundaries for our students. So you have our contact information. Nicole or Erin, any questions?
Not right now, but I definitely will be in touch. I just got a lot of these resources handed to me, so I'm just trying to make sense of everything right now and get my questions lined up. So once I check in with the district, I'm gonna reach out because I will have some questions.
Okay, absolutely. And I guess one thing for me to underscore that I may not have said throughout, the reason for some folks joining a consortium is to alleviate some of that administrative burden for newcomers into strong workforce, into the strong workforce program. I know you said that Bonsall does have CTIG, so you're probably going to get very well entrenched in CTIG requirements. Our role is to really help support you in the administrative grant management part of it. I mean, there is a bit of a lift for any folks joining the consortium by completing some of those documents that we went through, but they may not be as fully, they may not be pages and pages. Like if you were doing this on your own, we could distill it down as part of a consortia. So there's there's quite a few advantages for us to be the lead for folks who are either small districts or new or middle school districts who are just starting out in career pathway planning and development. So that's where Al has charged me with how can I better support, how can we county office support our middle schools to really take advantage of this continuum of starting pathways earlier. And we've got, county office has at our Linda Vista Innovation Center, we're even starting in elementary school. Unfortunately, this funding can't address that for elementary, but we're starting as early as we can. Okay, hard stop at 12. Okay, so please reach out, let us know what questions you might have after, give it a think, and we're here to support. So thank you very much, and look forward to hearing from folks.